Welcome to this SoundXR training video. Keep watching as we explain how to perform object-based mixing using SoundXR, Yamaha Group's immersive audio solution. Using a jazz music source, we'll walk through the process from setup to operation, guiding you through a live event scenario. By the end of this video, we're sure that the appeal of object-based mixing will become clear. SoundXR is an immersive audio solution jointly provided by Yamaha, NEXO and Steinberg. SoundXR Image offers object-based mixing functionality. Such mixing can be performed using the latest DME processors from Yamaha and NEXO. First, let's briefly review object-based audio. This is a method in which audio objects carry not only the sound waveform, but also positional metadata. Unlike conventional channel-based audio, such as stereo or 5.1 surround, mixing with objects enables more precise sound image control tailored to the venue. As a result, it provides the audience with a more immersive experience that enhances their engagement with the performance. Mixing engineers, have you ever experienced the following challenges? At live events, stereo panning doesn't always produce a noticeable effect. In fact, for audience members seated close to the speakers, the sound image tends to localize at the speaker itself, creating a mismatch between the visual and auditory experience. As a result, panning effectively becomes almost monaural, limiting musical expression. Additionally, because a large amount of information must be pushed through a single speaker, excessive EQ and compression may be required for each source to reduce the amount of audio masking, or even when using reverb, the spatial impression may not change significantly. All of these issues can be resolved using SoundXR Image. Now let's consider a typical and practical immersive audio system for live events. Instead of a conventional stereo main speaker system, we expand it to 5 or 7 speakers, moving from stereo to frontal 5 or 7. We then combine this with object-based mixing by placing audio objects at the positions of the performers. This allows for natural sound image localization, aligning visual and auditory cues and enhancing the sense of immersion. In addition, increasing the number of speakers reduces the need to pack too much information into a single speaker. Whereas traditional mixing was completed entirely within the console, we now mix within a virtual representation of the space itself. This results in a more natural tonal balance with higher clarity. Furthermore, by applying SoundXR Image's 3D reverb to surround and ceiling speakers, you can dramatically transform the spatial impression. So, let's see how to start mixing, using an actual jazz band as the audio source. The microphones are connected to the mixing desk inputs as normal, with gain, EQ and dynamics applied. You can see we're using a Yamaha DME here. All the elements of the drum kit are mixed to a stereo group, and all the piano mics are combined into a stereo group. These groups, along with the other input channels, are sent post-fader from the DME mixer to the SoundXR Image component in the DME7. The SoundXR Image controller application is run on a computer to manage the system setup and the object positioning. The rendered mix is then transmitted to the NEXO NX Amp Mark II and amplified through the speakers. All audio signals are transmitted via the Dante network for speed, efficiency, quality and reliability. For the speaker system, we have use of 5 FOH speakers at the front, 9 surround speakers, 4 ceiling speakers and 1 subwoofer. When first setting up the devices, configure the internal settings of the DME7 using ProVisionaire design. Detailed configuration procedures are explained in a separate video. For this system, the configuration is as follows. Incoming signals via Dante are processed by the SoundXR Image component and then output again via Dante. It's a simple and straightforward system. Next is the Dante configuration. The system is connected as follows. The mixer signals are routed to the DME7, and the output from the DME7 is then sent to the NX amps. Finally, let's configure the SoundXR Image component. Open the SoundXR image application. Click the New button and select the 64 object system. First, establish the connection by going to System, Settings, selecting the network interface, selecting the DME device, and selecting the component. Sync and connect to the device and go online. Still in the System tab, select Speakers and enter the speaker layout in meters. Note that coordinates can be imported if the system design data is available. Confirm the changes before moving to the next step. Next, let's configure the subwoofer. In this example, we'll use the aux out signal as the subwoofer feed. Set it up as shown here. You can verify the speaker outputs and aux out signals using an oscillator. Next is the zone configuration. In this example, we'll create an FOH zone for the main front of house loudspeakers and an envelopment zone, or ENV, for the surround and ceiling speakers. For the FOH zone, select the 5 FOH speakers and configure the zone as shown. This zone will handle the primary sources of the mix. For the envelopment zone, select the surround and ceiling speakers and set it up accordingly. By using surround and overhead speakers, this zone enables new forms of musical expression that go beyond front-bass mixing. It can be used not only for ambient sound and reverb, but also for creative spatial effects and expanded sound design. In addition, let's create an all zone that includes all speakers. With this, the basic setup is complete. Now let's open the control screen. The control screen allows you to perform all the fundamental operations for object-based mixing. The panel on the right is where you can control each individual audio object. In this example, objects 1 and 2 are stereo drum sources, object 3 is bass, objects 4 and 5 are piano, object 6 is guitar, and object 7 is vocals. In addition, effect sources are input from the mixer to objects 8 through 13. First, let's assign labels to the objects. You can enter the object name in the Name field. By clicking the icon, you can also change the icon and color of each audio object. In some cases, this information can be synchronized with the mixing desk to avoid duplicating the task. By clicking On, audio will be output from the selected audio object. You can select multiple objects at once by holding the Shift key while selecting them. Multi-selection using the Control key or Apple Command key is also supported. Next, select the appropriate zone. Assign objects 1 to 7 to the FOH zone and objects 8 to 13 to the envelopment zone. Now release the OBA mute on the left and carefully monitor the level as you start playback. You can localize the sound image by moving the objects. By placing objects at the positions of the performers, you can achieve natural sounding localization. For effects and similar elements, placing them so they surround the audience can create spatial effects not possible with conventional live sound systems. Be sure to listen on-site and find the optimal position for each object. Moving each side of a stereo source individually can be a bit cumbersome, right? That's why we provide a pairing function. By pressing the pairing button, you can pair 2 adjacent objects. This allows their parameters to be linked, so when you move them, they'll maintain their relative positions. Now let's listen to the sound. If you feel the vocal image should be larger, click the Size tab. use the width parameter to broaden the sound image. You'll likely want to send the bass signal and the kick drum sounds of the drum kit to the subwoofer. Click the aux send tab. By adjusting the aux on setting and the send level, you can set an appropriate level for playback from the subwoofer. For engineers who want to enrich the spatial impression further, 3D reverb is an ideal solution. Let's configure this from the Reverb tab. When you click it, a screen like this will appear. First, select the speakers you want to hear the reverb from, using the zone selector on the right. In this case, we'll use all speakers, so select the all zone. Next, choose a reverb preset. Click the hall icon. From here, you can select the reverb pattern. There are 6 venue options to choose from. The top left has the shortest reverberation, while the bottom right has the longest. Since we're using a jazz source, a shorter reverb time will be more suitable, so let's select recital hall for this example. Adjust the reverb center and room size according to the speaker layout. Click Apply, and next adjust the time-based parameters such as level, pre-delay and decay. You can also balance the levels between early reflections, ER, and the reverb. Since we're working with a jazz source, set the decay to a shorter value to achieve a more natural ambience. Return to the control screen and select Rev Send. From here, you can set the on-off and send level for each object individually. Let's try sending the vocal source to the reverb. Adjust the reverb parameters while listening to the sound. Returning to the reverb, by opening the Space tab, you can control the spatial weighting of the ambience. If you want to enhance the sense of height, adjust the gain weight Z parameter. You can also use the equalizer to shape the frequency response. In this way, you can easily create and perform a compelling object-based mix. Be sure to save your settings as a scene. Open the Scenes tab. Then select Store New Scene to save your scene. This will store the settings from the control screen as well as the reverb settings. Please note that speaker configuration settings are not saved within scenes. Finally, save the project file. This will store all the information, including the speaker configuration. Go to System and Settings. Then click Save for the project. This will create a project file on the computer, which can be modified offline and has the potential to be reused with other systems. Note that the DME hardware only holds one project at a time. That concludes this brief introduction to SoundXR Image. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. You can surely expect additional SoundXR training content in the future. We encourage you to try immersive audio for yourself and get familiar with the signal flow and workflow. Discover the advantage of SoundXR systems where immersive becomes intuitive.